Let's get straight into it. Huge news this week that Ruben Amorim will take over as the Manchester United head coach. Importantly, after the club sacked Erik ten Hag. Spencer, you are a neutral in this. What are your thoughts on A, Ten Hag going, and B, Amorim arriving?
First of all, Joe, you're welcome. West Ham finished them off. You know, we did the job for you. I think that was a bit of a sack race game there.
It was, El Sakiko.
I don't know. I don't want to bring it up so early, chaps. But basically, what was it, a couple of months ago I was on the show. I think I was asked to rank Man United managers.
You were?
And I think I put Ten Hag fairly high. And I said, as a caveat, I don't like him. I don't think he should be manager. Don't rate him. And I got a little bit of resistance at the time, I think. Well,
pat on the back.
listen, I don't want to take the mick because the manager, someone's lost their job at the end of the day, right? And football's football. There's opinions, whether it's right or wrong. I think he had a tough stint. He had to deal with a lot of stuff, but maybe some of the transfers hurt him a little bit as well. But I do think it's the right decision. From a club perspective, I think it had to be done. You've got to remember, you've got new owners now. They've now got the chance to put their own print on it, haven't they?
I thought he'd mentioned the last time he was on the show. Mina, a Man United fan, so from a fan's perspective, what do you make of the news?
I'm sure a lot of people feel it's unfortunate. Like Spence said, you don't want to see someone lose their job. But the last 15 months for Manchester United, it's not been an easy one. I think last season, the Champions League run, it was humiliation in the Champions League. Erik ten Hag finished 8th place with Manchester United last season. He actually was on path potentially this year to maybe outdo himself and beat his own record from last season. And obviously this year has been difficult because Erik ten Hag spent 616 million, and you look at the squad and think, where is that money gone? Where is that quality and the money that has been spent? So yeah, it's unfortunate, but the Amorim era is about to start, and I'm really optimistic for it.
Yeah, and it gave us a good idea, didn't it?
Absolutely.
Item.
Yeah, you mentioned the squad there and Ruben Amorim. So today we're going to have a look at that squad and who you think is going to work under Ruben Amorim. So we've got a tick, we've got a cross. We're going to go through player by player. Spence, you're going to weigh in whether you agree or you disagree. Should we start with the goalkeepers?
Yeah, go on. Let's get it cracking. Start with the goalkeepers.
OK.
And this is up to you. So what you think, stay or go, what you think should happen to all the players. 2
goalkeepers, Altay Binder, Andre Onana. Not the biggest problem that Manchester United have to solve right now in the club. I think Andre Onana in particular, last season he started off quite difficult. You know, I mentioned the Champions League run, but, you know, it was a bit unfortunate. It's his freshman year, if you want to call it that. This year, he's actually saved Manchester United quite a few points. 4 clean sheets in the Premier League so far. I think that's actually top in 9 games so far.
He is most of any Premier League goalkeeper, you're right.
And also, thinking about Crystal Palace game, think about the Fenerbahce game in the Europa League. He made some massive saves that actually saved United a point. So both of them, I'm going to say stay, because Manchester United got a lot of bigger problems.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, isn't it, how Andre Onana works under Ruben Amorim, really, because obviously he's a very progressive goalkeeper, isn't he? And we know how Ruben Amorim wants to play with that 3 at the back. Sometimes his goalkeeper steps up into that high line. So when we come on to the defenders, I think this is where it's probably the most interesting chat, because we're shifting an entire shape here from a back 3 to a back 3.
I think that's a really good point. We should talk about that. Do you expect United to change formation, given how Amorim plays? A very different style to Erik ten Hag. Do you expect them to play a different formation?
Well, obviously, he's played a certain way at Sporting. They've brought him in for those reasons, I presume. It's up to the management, and it doesn't just mean him, obviously, because the way these clubs work now it can be different. But there would have been a discussion in the interview process. How do you want to play, and how do you expect me to play? So everyone seems to suggest it's going to be the same way that he played at Sporting, which is going to be a bit of a change. But we're seeing a lot of teams move to this sort of 3 at the back system now and still play progressively. I think back in the day it was looked at sometimes as a 5 and a bit defensive. Think about the Chelsea teams that did well in that formation. We look at what Xabi Alonso's doing at Leverkusen. It can be used really attackingly, and I think that's what we're going to see. OK, interesting point. We'll go on. Let's do centre-backs first then, shall we?
We'll go with the centre-backs.
So who's the first magnet you've got?
And you guys mentioned this because I do think in the summer transfer window, Man United were preparing for the arrival of a manager maybe in the future, like Ruben Amorim, because they brought in a young talent called Lenny Yoro that we haven't seen play a competitive game for Manchester United. Unfortunately got injured in pre-season, but, you know, one of the most sought-after young players this summer, and Manchester United managed to land him. Lisandro Martinez is another player that I'm quite fond of. He's really good on the ball. Had unfortunate issues with his injuries last season, but this year he's really starting to take shape, and I think he's a player, like you lot mentioned, if Amorim is going to come and play a back 3, he's going to be a player that is really utilised because of the fact that he's so good on the ball. He's so, you know, he's able to drive the ball forward if necessary. And
do you think those two, just to touch on Lenny Yoro, obviously he arrived big money, didn't he? Over £50 million, I think. For his age, it's one of the biggest transfer fees.
You know what? He's actually the most expensive expensive player in history aged 18 or younger, because Mbappe technically, when he signed, was 19, although there was the loan thing, so a technicality. But it's huge money for a player of his age. It's a shame he's out for 3 months.
Do you think he starts then in Man United's first 11 under Amorim?
Under Amorim, I think he will start, but
in
also in a three.
three.
But equally, with saying that, I do anticipate United going out and buying a centre back next summer that could be on the horizon. If you remember this summer, Man United were linked to potentially buying 3 centre backs. Jared Brantford was a player that they were really after, so I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they go back in the market for him, or they go back for another centre back that they were linked to. I remember they wanted Todibo, but they couldn't get him because of the UEFA regulation.
Go on, Spencer's got his hand up.
I'm saying we got him.
Had that on the show.
Just saying we got him. West Ham got him at the end of the day, Todibo, and he's been pretty poor before so far. So I think you might dodge a bullet there. But no, he'll come good, I'm sure.
So let's go through one by one. So let's stick Lenny Yoro in definite in the stay. Let's talk a little bit about Lisandro Martinez. Does the back three suit him more?
I think it does suit him very well. I think, you know, he's quite fluid. He can play left-sided in a back three. He can play left-back, which he's been playing under Erik ten Hag. It'll be very interesting to see in terms of how he kind of shifts in that back three. Will he kind of progress into midfield? Will he drift out wide to kind of support the full-back under Amorim? Obviously, this is just speculation because we don't know what Amorim's going to do until he comes in.
All right, let's get Lisandro up and we'll talk about the next one. Might have to get Spencer's help pretty soon on the other side.
I'll definitely need his help for the next one. And last but not least, Matthias de Ligt. We brought him in the summer, and it's been an interesting one with him because, of course, Man United have conceded 3 to Spurs, conceded 3 to Liverpool, all of which he was part of. But I don't think that really captures the value and the experience that he actually can provide for Manchester United. An Erik ten Hag signing, but I think he's going to come good. I think he's very good on the ball. He's quite strong. He's quite physical. His recovery pace is quite deceptive sometimes. He looks slow, but when he's recovering pace, he's actually quite quick. So I think as time goes on and he really kind of gets into the essence of playing at Manchester United, I think he's going to be a very important player, and I think he could be captain material.
Okay,
captain material. Talking of captain material, Harry Maguire is up next, isn't he?
He is.
A former captain of the club, a player that was linked with your side.
How many players bounce back from that, really? You know, the captaincy being taken away from them. It's quite rare that they stay at the club a long time after that. But he's done it so far.
What would you do with Maguire?
What would I do with him? I like Harry Maguire. I've always loved Harry Maguire.
I'm excited about the prospect of him joining West Ham at the time.
Yeah, and I'm a big England fan, and I've obviously got great memories of what he's done for us there. I think he's a player that needs to be played in a certain system.
A back three?
Yeah. Well, back three for England was his best football by far. But is that an Amorim back three? I don't know. Southgate's back three. I'm not sure. I would always have him, but I'm not necessarily building a Man United squad. If I was at West Ham, for example, when we tried to sign him, I thought it would have been perfect for us, whether it's back three or back four. It's all about how much you want on the ball, how much do you need in recovery, how much you expect to be controlling games, you know? And, maybe with the way that some of the more progressive teams want to play, he might not be the perfect fit. And you've got a lot of depth now in that centre-back area.
As a United fan, where do you put him?
Spencer mentioned something interesting, which is the way that Amorim plays. In Europe this year, Amorim's Sporting was, I think, the 4th highest in terms of where their backline starts. You know, it was only Porto, Benfica, and Manchester City. Sorry, I wish Man United. Manchester City that had a higher starting point. So a player like Harry Maguire, I don't think in Amorim's system, in Southgate's one he might work, but in Amorim's system, not necessarily. Now, one thing I like about Harry Maguire and a lot of respect for him is because of the way that he's handled his situation at Manchester United the last 2.5 seasons. You know, Erik ten Hag came in, dropped him immediately. They didn't strip the captaincy, but dropped him immediately. The next season, stripped him of his captaincy. And that season, what happened? Man United had to rely on him because a lot of centre-backs were getting injured. And he came in, he had some good performances alongside Johnny Evans, who would have known in 2024 he'd be playing for Man United. And I respect him for that. But I think when you look at Man United's assets right now, Harry Maguire is one of the more sellable ones.
OK, so is he going to be the first? OK, let's go.
Yeah, he makes a good point. Stats guys said yesterday that he had 7 centre-back partners in 18 Premier League starts last season, Harry Maguire. So in fairness to him, you know, it wasn't the consistency that you need there.
He needs to go somewhere where he's loved. You know,
we've got 2 other centre-backs left.
Should we do the rest of the centre-backs together? What you've got?
Yeah, both of them for me. Go.
Straight away, Lindelof and Evans.
Yeah, I think Victor Lindelof, he's one of 7 players at Manchester United that were pre-Erik ten Hag. So I think Man United, if they're going to have this, open heart surgery, let him go. Johnny Evans, been a true professional. But I think he's going to retire. I actually think he's down to retire.
OK, he's out of contract, of course, at the end of the season, Johnny Evans. But he has been magnificent this year, by the way.
Fair play for him.
He has been magnificent. He's been one of United's best players.
Premier League stars.
One of United's best players. Let's go to the fullbacks then, because this is a crucial area for how Ruben Amorim wants to play, of course, isn't it? You've got Mazraoui on the table there in front of you, Mina.
Yeah, there you go. I was a bit confused.
So we've got
Mazraoui and Diogo Dalot, I think this will be quite quick. Yeah, both keep. Like I mentioned with the keepers, Man United have bigger problems than what's at right back. Nazir Mazraoui, for the value that they brought him in for, great. Diogo Dalot, one of Manchester United's most improved players. So both of them is a simple one.
He was Man United's player of the season last year, Diogo Dalot. Had a great season, didn't he?
Bit of a slow start this year. Obviously, the miss against Spencer's side that we're not going to talk about. But nevertheless, that's quite soon.
Up in the world.
OK, so let's get them up on the stay column, and then we'll discuss a problem position for United. Which
should we get Spencer's take on the left-back situation? So reveal the magnets that you've got. So you've got... I believe it's Malacia and Shaw, no Premier League appearances for either of them this season. What do you make of the sort of left-back situation at Manchester United?
I think last year we've just not seen enough of him. I certainly haven't, as a neutral.
Even United fans haven't.
No, so I maybe say the verdict's still out there, but it depends. Obviously you've got this formation that's going to come in. This left-sided player. Luke Shaw can do that as an aggressive one, but is he more likely to play like a winger? I was talking about Garnacho playing there, all this sort of thing. Luke Shaw can then drop in as a left-sided centre-back as well. You're going to need some depth there, particularly if you get rid of the likes of Maguire and Evans and Lindelof. There's going to be some opportunities there. With Luke Shaw, with players in general, I was looking at it from a sort of economic perspective. Like, what can you get for them? What's the cost of keeping them? And have they got a big sale? I don't know if Luke Shaw's got a big transfer value left in him. I think the best possible win with him is letting him play out his time and potentially getting some, hopefully, less injury-plagued seasons out of him. Someone like Malacia, if he's not playing, may be worth moving on, getting a fee for him if he's not someone that Amorim wants to build a squad around, which he probably isn't. So it's a bit harsh on him because I'm not seeing a lot of him, but I'd probably move on Malacia in the expectation that Amorim's going to bring someone in that position. Yeah, do you think he will? Because this injuries is a serious issue with both of them. When you look at Malacia, missed all of last season for the knee injury, hasn't played this season. Luke Shaw only had 12 Premier League appearances last season, hasn't played this season. So will he want to see both of them play, or will he straight away be looking for a left-back, do you think?
I think Manchester United need a left-back because I think if under Ruben Amorim, if they're going to play with a wing-back, it's better to get someone who can naturally play as a wing-back. Just quickly on Tyrell Malacia. When he came into Manchester United, I never really saw him to be the starting left-back, but I thought, like in basketball, you need a sixth man, you need rotation players. I thought he was a good option for rotation. You remember his Premier League debut against Liverpool? Yeah. Phenomenal against Mohamed Salah. So I think he'd be a good option. But like you said, we haven't seen him 15 months. We haven't seen him since his first season. Luke Shaw's a really interesting one because he's been at the club for nearly 10 years now. He's got 28 assists in about 275 appearances, which means he's averaging about 3 assists per season at his time at Manchester United. You look at the injury record, he's missed 30-plus games in about 5 seasons at Manchester United. Last season, he missed 38 games. This season, we're in November, and he's already missed 50% of that. If he carries on at that metric, how many games is he actually going to play for Manchester United? But then you look at, if Man United do get rid of 3 centre-backs, we've seen him play left-sided centre-back in a back 2 under Eric Ten Hag. I remember Man City, Old Trafford, Eric Ten Hag's first season. So that could be an option. So for me, Tyrell Malacia, I'm going to say stay just for depth. And Luke Shaw is probably the only one I'm going to put in 50-50.
Oh, you can't. We have a 50.
You're going to make me an offer.
Because I can see both sides of the argument. I can see the argument of keeping him, and I can see...
But what would you do?
What would I do? I would let him go.
What's he got left on his contract?
2027 is contract.
Right, let's move on to midfielders then. Let's look at some of the... who have you got first for midfielders? I mean, Kobbie Mainoo's attacking, right?
That's probably the easiest one. Build the whole team. Give him a 10-year contract.
Yeah.
Keep him at Manchester United. So that's quick.
Nailed on.
Nice and
that's probably your side, I think, Mina, to be fair. We're going... Look at this build. What's going on with this build?
We'll go backwards. We'll go back.
Depends.
The 2 positions of the central midfield.
Big talking points.
Yeah, this is a big talking point with Ugarte, isn't it? You feel like this could be a good appointment for Ugarte? That's
why I said, I feel like Man United were preparing for Amorim to arrive, getting a player of Ugarte's quality. Eric Ten Hag was quite reluctant to play him, but he's also been inconsistently in the lineup. He had a good Europa League performance against, I think it was FC 20, then he was dropped on the weekend, then again midweek, good performance, dropped in the Premier League. So he just needs a run of game time, and funnily enough, this week against Leicester, albeit it's a rotated Leicester team, Casemiro looked at his best with a DM next to him. So maybe this could be an option that Manchester United explore. Manuel Ugarte, for me, is going to be an absolute stay.
He's the biggest winner of the whole deal, isn't he, Spence? Having his former manager, of course, in Ruben Amorim, come into the side, who knows the system, is probably going to be the go-to guy.
It doesn't hurt at all. And I actually thought the exact same thing when I looked at the lineup against Leicester, and I saw this balance in midfield that I hadn't really seen in a long time, defensively at least, under Ten Hag. And I just thought, it's not that hard, is it? This is why you get this new manager bounces. I know it's only an interim with Rude, but he comes in and he goes, right, let's just change things up a little bit. Why can't some managers do this themselves themselves a little bit more before they get under the pressure like Ten Hag did. Just go, right, I'm going to try these different combinations and see what happens, because it seems like it was staring him in the face at times. But yeah, especially with a progressive back three, you want that hard tackling sort of CDM in there, and I think that he could be a mainstay.
And I have to say, Casemiro, like, some of his best work at United has actually been done not in the defensive third, in the attacking third. And the goal he scored against Leicester midweek.
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Yeah. So let's get him presumably in stay or
no, I was going to say go, because I didn't get to my point, because Manchester United, from a PSR perspective, they need to make some cost cutting. You know, we've seen them do it in the summer with their transfer window, and he's one of the higher earners in the team. Yeah. So I can anticipate that Manchester United, if they're able to, you know, recoup some costs for him, he earns about 18 million a year.
Yeah, 17 million pound they bought from Spencer.
And so when you amortise that across his contract period, Manchester United, if they're able to sell him for about 30 million, PSR perspective, they're in a better position than possibly what they would have been. So I would say he's a sellable asset as well. So
what's your list?
Does he start in the best 11? If you've got Kobe and you've got Agate, if you can't have someone on those money not starting, can you?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Interesting.
The more attacking midfield role then.
Yeah, more attacking midfield is two players that have had opposite kind of careers at Manchester United so far. Christian Eriksen is going to be quick because he's a free agent similar to Victor Lindelof, so I'm going to say go. Okay. But he's had a good period at Manchester United. And this season as well. He's been one of Man United's, I think he's up there with one of the most goals for the squad so far. Mason Mount's a really interesting one for me, because I wasn't keen on his signing last summer. It was a very unusual one, but I look at Amorim's system, a system that likes to press, congest the middle and, you know, press in the passing lanes. Could Mason Mount be a benefit for that? But then, similar to Luke Shaw, you look at his injury record, and at Chelsea in about 5 seasons, I think he missed about 18 games altogether, and he's missed double that now at Manchester United, and he's only been there.
It's quite interesting, that, isn't it? The injury problems that have happened to Manchester United. You know, they were so vast last season. Again, this season they've been pretty vast. Do you think that some of that blame has to come down to Erik ten Hag and his management, maybe what he's doing in training, because it's so frequent? Well,
time will tell, won't it? Give it 6 months under Amorim and let's see, because that has to be looked at. There has to be looked at whether there's things that can be changed habitually and schedule-wise and whatever. And we know these players have been asked to play more than ever. Generally, across the board, we're seeing high injury rates. But, yeah, they do seem a bit cursed. With Mason Mount, I think it's a really interesting one where I just think, unfortunately, sometimes transfer fee just dictates the success of a player, regardless of what happens. If he comes in on a free transfer or much less and has these injuries, you're sort of, don't worry, we'll see what happens with him. But this expectation that came with him, it was a weird transfer. It just stunk of someone. Todd Bowley's got on the phone and said, I need to sell someone for X amount of money, and got his mate to help him out, because it just didn't make sense. It put so much pressure on him. I don't know if it ever comes good because of that, and I think a lot of clubs don't want to get out of something that's not working. They let things go too long. Like Anthony's another good example we'll talk about.
Do you know what I'm going to say that about Mason is that I think, yes, he's been very unlucky with injury, but he played his best football for me when he was playing in a 3-4-3 under Thomas Tuchel as part of that front three, almost as like a inside right, very similar to how Amorim uses those front three. I could see Mason Mount having a really big impact as one of the members of that front three under Ruben Amorim.
Though? When we get to the attacking perspective, who are you going to drop in that?
Well, I think it's important that you have some depth in that area as well, right? You can't just have one player. Manchester United, as we've just spoken about, have such vast injury issues. You know, Bruno Fernandes is into his 30s now. Like, I think there is going to be opportunities for Mason Mount to have impact. At the start of the season, he was pretty good off the ball for Manchester United. Some of United's best performances involved Mason Mount.
I think it depends on demand. If someone comes in with a half-decent offer, maybe half the money they paid for him, I think you take it, to be honest. Just to
it is your
give him
list.
A chance, man.
I'm going to say keep, because I think it's been the first season and a bit, and, you know, give him another season, he might come good. So
next up, you've got Bruno Fernandes, who did make the most appearances under Ten Hag, of course. Second highest goal scorer under Ten Hag as well. I'm pretty sure.
Keep.
You're going to keep it? Yeah. I'm not gonna,
I don't think we have to go into depth about Bruno Fernandes.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be a keep.
OK,
into the forwards then.
Into the forwards is going to be an interesting one. Two of Manchester United's right wingers have had, again, different type of trajectories in terms of their career at Manchester United. Amad Diallo should be Manchester United's starting player on the right-hand side. And that's I think that's a very bold take from me. I watched him a lot at Sunderland, and I think in Amorim's system, playing behind a striker, at Sunderland we saw him a lot playing on the right-hand side, but he has the ability to come into the half spaces in the 10. And in Amorim's system, if he's playing two people behind the striker next to Bruno Fernandes on his left, I think he'll be able to really work well. He doesn't require a lot of touches on the ball. His technical ability is out of this world, and I think he's got a year left in his contract. Man United need to tie him down if they really want to have a technical player in their team, so I'm going to say stay.
Okay, let's get him out.
Yes. And Anthony, of course, £85.4 million from Ajax. Man United's most used sub in all comps last season. It's not worked out the way with the hopes, is it?
They didn't pay 80 million for a sub player, a bench player, a rotation player. I think for me, it's a go. It's just not worked out for him at Manchester United.
Newcastle wanted him at some point. Take the money. Just whatever they offer, just take it.
Let's get Spencer's thoughts. Should we do Marcus Rashford next? Because obviously, big talking point with regards to Marcus Rashford. 1 goal, 1 assist in 9 Premier League appearances. 8 goals in all comps last season. But you think back to 22-23, he scored 30 goals, 17 in the Premier League. He's third youngest Man United player to 300 appearances ever in their history. I mean, what is your take on Marcus Rashford? Because I feel like he's a player that people talk about and have an opinion on a lot.
He has spells, doesn't he? He has spells, and it always seems like we're remembering a time when he was in great form. Then he has a big period of down form, then he gets up again. So you've got to give it a go with the new manager, because he is such a streaky player that this new manager could come in and just turn him alive, and it could be amazing. He's so good when he's good. I think he just turned 27, I think, this week, didn't he? So he's still in a good age for someone to have another good run at it. Obviously, he's homegrown, and that stuff's not just important because of the way the fans feel about him. It's important from a squad perspective, having homegrown players. So, again, if there's like an 80 mil plus offer for him and you need that money because you've got your eye on someone else, maybe you look at it. But otherwise, just keep him, I think.
I agree with Spencer. If it's a big fee that comes in for him, take it, because it's 100% profit. Again, emphasis on PSR. Manchester United are not in a good place from that perspective. But if you think about the numbers that he's had at Manchester United in the last 10 or so years, he's actually in great company. In the Premier League, he's only one of 5 Man United players that got 80-plus goals and 40-plus assists. He's in company with Rooney, Scholes, Giggs, Beckham. That's great company. He's got only just over 200 goal involvements in about 417 appearances. In the Premier League as well, he's got good numbers. And I think you look at all of Man United's front players, he's the most prolific goal scorer, albeit that it's inconsistent. You know, he is the one that can historically get you goals. So I think United have to keep him.
All right, let's get him up, and then we'll move on to the front three. Should we do the final three together? Let's have a look at these final three.
You've got, just to the camera, who you've got left.
I got these two. Left, Garnacho,
Højlund, and new signing Xerxes.
All 3 of them keep. I'm really excited to actually see Rasmus Højlund in Amorim's system, especially how he utilises his number 9s. Now, he's still in his 2nd year at Manchester United, a lot of growth, but he's got the talent. Joshua Xerxes is an interesting one because I can see the technical level, but when it comes to goal scoring, is he going to be the guy that gets you 10, 15, 20 goals in the season? I think only time will tell, but I think he's a player similar to Ugarte that was brought in preparation of a manager like Amorim coming in. And Garnacho, you guys know what Garnacho is about. He's an absolute talent, and we might see him at left wing back for Manchester United.
No.
You never know.
I don't think Joe likes that shout.
Joe
does not like that shout.
You never know.
It's going so well. And the last
get him as close to the goal as possible.
Because he can hold the width. He can burst down the touchline. He can come in on the left-hand side. Amorim likes to have left wing backs that can hold the width. So Garnacho could be an option, but all 3 of them, for me, keep.
OK, sit them up. That completes it. Spencer, just quickly, any that you'd change there?
I think just at the end? Maybe the Mason Mount shout, only if there's an offer for him, just because I think there's a chance he's going to want to put his own print on the squad. But ultimately, the managers I like are managers that can come in and work with a squad. And you look at like what Emery did at Villa. I know they bought some players recently, but that first initial spell was all Gerrard's squad, really. You know, and I think that's what makes a good manager. And particularly in these days, we don't necessarily get control of the transfers as manager. You've got to be able to work with what you get. So let's see what you can do.
OK, so there is confirmation of Mina's selection of every player, or the main players, who you'd keep and who would go under Amorim.